What if I told you that right now, tonight, while you're sweating through your sheets and watching your electric bill climb higher than your attic temperature, there are families in rural Ohio and Pennsylvania sleeping in rooms that are 20 degrees cooler than yours, without a single air conditioner running? No electricity, no technology, no monthly bill. Just a method so simple, so cheap, and so effective that the people who sell you cooling equipment have spent decades making sure you never heard about it. Because here's what nobody tells you. Your bedroom isn't hot because of the summer. It's hot because of what was done to your house on purpose. Let that sink in for a second. You walk in at 10 o'clock at night. The air hits you like a wall. The sheets are already damp. The ceiling fan is just recycling the same dead heat in a slow circle. You check the outside temperature on your phone, and it says 72 degrees. But your bedroom thermometer is reading 84, maybe 85. And somewhere in the back of your mind, you already know the electric bill is going to be brutal this month. You fall asleep damp, wake up groggy, and do it all over again the next night. Every summer, same story, year after year. Meanwhile, 200 miles away, an Amish farmer in Lancaster County is sleeping under a light blanket. Same outside temperature as your town. Same muggy summer night. His bedroom, 65 degrees by morning, and he didn't flip a single switch to get there. This is what Secret Vault exists to recover. The practical knowledge that got quietly buried not because it stopped working, but because nobody could figure out how to charge you for it. Here's the truth about why your bedroom feels like the inside of a parked car at night. And it has nothing to do with the sun being stronger or the summers being hotter. Your grandparents lived through brutal summers with zero air conditioning and somehow survived just fine. The problem isn't the climate. The problem is what happened to American houses starting around 1978. Picture this. A wooden house? Any wooden house behaves like a giant sponge during the day. The walls, the floor joists, the roof deck, every 2x4, and every sheet of plywood inside that structure spends 12 hours soaking up heat from the sun. By late afternoon, that wood is absolutely loaded with stored thermal energy, like a brick pulled out of a fire. Then the sun goes down, and in most of this country, the outside air drops anywhere from 15 to 25 degrees between 9 at night and 4 in the morning. That lumber wants to release all that stored heat. It wants to dump it back out into the cool night air, because that is what heat does. It moves from hot to cold, always, every single time, without exception. That is not a suggestion from nature. That is one of the most unbreakable rules in physics. So on a summer night, the wood inside your walls is actively trying to hand its stored heat back to the cooler air outside. That's the natural cycle. That's how houses breathed for centuries. But your house doesn't breathe anymore. Starting around 1978, when residential energy codes began tightening up, builders began sealing houses like Tupperware containers. Vapor barriers stapled inside the walls, plastic sheeting behind the drywall, spray foam packed into every crack, every gap, every joint. Sealed soffits, sealed gable vents, weather stripping on everything that opens. And we were told, and sold, on the idea that this would save us money on energy. And to be completely fair, in the dead of a cold winter, in a northern climate, it genuinely does. It keeps furnace heat inside where you want it. But in summer, that same ceiling traps every single BTU, your lumber soaked up all day inside your walls all night long. The heat has nowhere to go. The path old houses used to let heat escape has been caulked and foamed and sealed completely shut, so that stored energy just radiates inward into your rooms for hours, while the cool night air sits right outside your wall, literally inches away, unable to do anything about it. That is why your bedroom reads 84 degrees at 10 at night when it's 72 outside. Read that again carefully, because it is the entire secret. It is cooler outside than inside. The heat is not pouring in from the summer night. It is leaking out of the lumber in your own house from the inside, and your sealed walls won't let it escape to where it desperately wants to go. You are not sleeping in a hot room. You're sleeping inside a slow radiator built from 2x4s, and somebody sealed the vents. The Amish never sealed their houses that way. They never had to. They never ran central air or forced air heating systems they needed to trap inside tight walls. And so they kept something the rest of us were quietly nudged into forgetting, a living, working relationship with the cool night air. There was research published out of Penn State some years back comparing Amish farmhouses in Lancaster County to similarly sized conventional homes in the same climate, experiencing the same summer temperatures. The Amish homes ran measurably cooler in summer with absolutely no mechanical cooling. Not because their construction was superior, not because they had better windows or thicker insulation. They didn't. They simply had a different relationship with the night, and they had kept 3 specific techniques alive that most of the country had been sold past. I'm going to give you all 3, because here's the thing. If you only do one, you get a modest result. Do all 3 together, stack them the way the Amish stack them, and you get the full drop. 20 degrees is not a fantasy number. It's what happens when you let physics do what it's been trying to do in your house every single night while you sleep. The first technique costs you exactly nothing. Not a dollar, not a cent. It's called the night draw, and it's based on a principle of physics, so old and so reliable that it's the same reason chimneys work. Hot air rises. When it rises and exits through an opening high in a structure, cooler air gets pulled in from below to replace it. Automatically. No machine, no power, no moving parts. It's called the stack effect, and it has been working in buildings for thousands of years. Here's what it means for your house tonight. The coolest air available to you is almost certainly sitting in your basement or crawl space, where the ground temperature stays in the low 60s, even in the worst of August. That cold air is heavy. It sits low. Meanwhile, the hot air in your bedroom is light. It wants to rise. The problem in a sealed modern house is that there's no path. The basement door is closed. The attic access is sealed. The vents are blocked. So the hot air has nowhere to go and the cool air has no opening to enter. The stack effect is trying to happen right now in your house, and your sealed up structure is choking it off. To set up the night draw tonight, you do 3 things, and none of them cost a cent. Open the door at the bottom of your basement stairs or the hatch to your crawl space, then open one window in your bedroom, specifically the window on the side of the house that gets the least afternoon sun, which is usually the north or east side. Then open one window or vent as high in the house as you can manage. The highest window in the house? The top of a stairwell. The attic access hatch propped open 3 inches with a block of wood. The 3-inch gap is important, it's more than that. And the air rushes past your room too fast. Less than that, and the flow chokes. That's the whole setup. The temperature difference between the cool basement below and the hot attic above creates a difference in air pressure. And that pressure quietly, steadily, all night long, pulls cool air up from the ground, through your bedroom, and out the top of the house. No electricity, no noise, just physics doing what physics has always done. The second piece is where the method gets genuinely interesting, and it's where this diverges from anything you'll find in a mainstream home improvement article. You need a length of plain, untreated cotton muslin, 4 yards of it. At any fabric store, unbleached cotton muslin runs roughly $1 a yard, so you're looking at about $4. You want the cheap, slightly rough, off-white kind, not the bright bleached kind, not polyester, not a tight, high thread count weaver. The roughness is the open weave you need. Polyester is a plastic. Water beads on it and flashes off in an hour. Tightly woven cotton holds water on the surface but doesn't let air pass through. You need loose, open muslin that lets air move through the fabric while still holding moisture in the fiber. Soak the 4 yards in cold water. Wring it out until it's damp and heavy but not dripping. If you can squeeze water out with your hand, it's too wet. Hang it across the inside of the bedroom window you opened for the night draw on the cool shaded side. Drape it over the curtain rod. Pin it to the top of the frame with push pins. Clip it to a tension rod. The exact method of hanging doesn't matter at all. What matters is that the incoming night air has to pass through that damp cotton on its way into the room. Here's what happens next, and it's the same physics that cools your skin when you sweat and a breeze passes over you. When air moves through wet fabric, it picks up water vapor from the cloth. But to absorb that water vapor, the air has to give up some of its own energy, and when it gives up energy, its temperature drops. That is evaporative cooling. The air coming through that damp muslin arrives in your room measurably cooler than the air outside the cloth. Now, here's where this channel is going to be straight with you, because honesty is the whole point. Evaporative cooling is affected by humidity. In a dry climate, the air can absorb a tremendous amount of moisture from that cloth, and the temperature drop is dramatic. In a very humid climate, the air is already carrying a lot of moisture, so it can't absorb as much, and the effect is smaller. I'm not going to promise you 20 degrees off a piece of wet fabric in the middle of a Gulf Coast August, because physics won't deliver that, and I won't lie to you. What I will tell you is this. In dry air, the muslin does most of the heavy lifting. In humid air, the night draw does most of the heavy lifting, and the muslin adds several degrees on top. Stacked together in any climate that sees nighttime temperatures drop at all, you feel the difference, and your thermometer shows it. There's a Pennsylvania Farm Bulletin published in 1946 by a professor at Penn State, a piece of real agricultural research from a land-grant university in an era when the whole mission of that kind of research was simply helping farm families live better for less money. The professor documented a natural draft moving through a Lancaster County farmhouse. No fans, no powered ventilation, just the stack effect working through an open path. That draft cooled the entire upstairs floor for pennies a night. He measured it, wrote it all down, the method, the measurements, the cost, and that bulletin went out free to county extension offices across Pennsylvania, Ohio, Indiana, and New York from the late 1940s into the early 1950s. For a few years, it was just standard advice from the county agricultural agent. And then quietly, it faded out of the recommended reading. I want to be careful here, because I'm not going to claim something I can't prove. I cannot show you a room full of executives giving an order to bury this information. What I can tell you is what was happening in those exact years all around it. Rural electrification was reaching the last holdout farms. The companies manufacturing window air conditioners were pouring marketing money into exactly those same agricultural regions. And by the late 1950s, those same county extension offices that had once distributed the natural cooling bulletin were handing out glossy brochures on how to choose the right size window unit for your bedroom. The free method didn't stop working. Physics didn't change. It just stopped being the thing anyone with money had a reason to talk about. Because nobody on earth makes $1 telling you to open your basement door and hang a damp cloth in the window. So it slipped out of the pamphlets and out of the conversation. And the only people who kept doing it were the ones who never bought the machine in the first place. The Amish. A handful of Mennonite families, old German farm communities out in the Pennsylvania Dutch country. They kept the method alive in their own bedrooms, quietly, while the rest of the country was sold a box in the window that costs money to buy, money to run, and money to repair. Now, for those of you sitting in a house built in 1965 or 1978 or 1991, thinking this only applies to old stone farmhouses, stay with me, because the night draw and the muslin work in any wood frame house. A house built after 1960 just needs 3 specific adjustments. First, find your coldest available air source. If your basement is finished or you don't have one, walk around the outside of your house at 9 at night with your hand low to the foundation. The coldest spot is almost always the shaded north side, where the ground stays in the low 60s, even deep into August. A crawl space door on that side, a basement window, a screened porch on the north face, open the path to whatever cold air is touching your house. No basement at all? A garage with a north-facing door works. The goal is to identify the coolest body of air available and open a path for it. Second, your modern attic has vents designed to ventilate the attic itself, not your living space. Hot air rises through your bedroom ceiling and stops there. To solve this without cutting into anything, open your attic access hatch, the pull-down stairs, or the scuttle hole in the hallway ceiling, and prop it open about 3 inches with a block of wood. 3 inches is the sweet spot. Any more and the cool air rushes through too fast. Any less, and the flow is choked. That 3-inch gap lets the stack effect pull all the way from your basement to your roof ridge all night long. Third, and this one surprises people, if you have central air ductwork in the house, turn the air conditioning off, and those ducts become a passive cool air highway. Open every supply register, open every return, leave the bedroom door cracked a few inches, and the night draw pulls cool basement air through the entire duct system on its way up through the house. The results in ordinary houses, split levels, Cape Cods, ranch homes, the kind most of you actually live in, are real. Not historical farmhouse real, not Stonewall century-old construction real, modern house real, bedrooms dropping from the low 80s into the mid-60s by morning with the air conditioner switched completely off. Now, the third piece. This is the one that almost nobody discusses, and it's the technique that carries the cool of the night forward into the heat of the following day. It was found as a single handwritten pencil note in the margin of an old copy of that 1946 farm bulletin. The note read simply, salt sheet, head of bed, sundown to sunrise. That was it, nothing else. And it took 3 separate conversations with Amish women in Holmes County, Ohio, before one of them explained it plainly, because it's the kind of knowledge they grew up with and simply assume everyone carries. Here's what you do, and the total cost is about $1. Take 1 old cotton bed sheet. The thinner and more worn, the better it works. Dissolve 1 cup of plain, coarse rock salt, the cheap kind sold in large bags for water softeners, not refined table salt, into a gallon of warm water and stir until the salt fully dissolves and the water runs clear. Soak the whole sheet in that salt water until it's saturated. Wring it out until it's damp and heavy but not dripping. Then hang it on a wooden rack or a line, strung roughly 2 feet above the head of your bed, at sundown the evening before you want it working. Here's why this is clever. Through the cool hours of the night, the salt soaked into the fabric actively pulls moisture out of the night air, so instead of drying out the way a plain wet sheet would, the salt sheet stays damp on its own all night without any re-wetting. Then, in the morning, as the room begins to warm and the sun comes up, that moisture evaporates gradually back out of the cloth over several hours. And as it evaporates, it pulls heat out of the pocket of air directly above your bed. The effect is gentle and continuous. It doesn't blast cold the way a machine does. What it does is keep the air above your pillow from climbing as fast as the rest of the house climbs through the morning heat, buying you 2 or 3 extra hours of genuine comfort before the day fully takes over. You don't need to wash the sheet between uses. The salt prevents mold and bacterial growth, so the cloth itself stays clean. At the end of summer, rinse it in plain water, let it dry completely, and fold it away until next June. 3 techniques. The night draw, free. The damp muslin in the window, about $4. The salt sheet over the bed, About $1, $5 total once, and after that, it runs every single night of the summer for the rest of your life with zero operating cost. No electric bill, no filters, no compressor to fail at 3 in the morning on the hottest night of July, no refrigerant to leak, no service call. And here's the thing I want to leave you with, because this is the part that stays with me every time I pull one of these methods out of an old bulletin or out of a conversation with someone who learned it from their grandmother who learned it from hers. This knowledge didn't disappear because it stopped working. It disappeared because there was no economic incentive for anyone to keep promoting it. Nobody makes $1 on a pencil note in the margin of a 1946 farm bulletin. Nobody makes $1 today when you open your basement door and hang a damp cloth. The method kept working, quietly, in the hands of the families who never bought the machine. And it is every bit as effective in your house tonight as it was in a Lancaster County farmhouse 80 years ago. One thing worth saying plainly, these 3 techniques are genuinely effective on ordinary warm summer nights. But heat is not just uncomfortable. In a real heat wave, extended dangerous heat, heat that doesn't break at night, heat affecting the elderly or very young children or people with heart and breathing conditions, these methods are not a substitute for real cooling resources. If the heat is serious, get to real air conditioning, a cooling center somewhere with genuine mechanical cooling. The Amish themselves moved to root cellars and spring houses in the worst heat of summer. They never claimed the night draw could beat everything. Use these techniques for what they're built for. Sleeping better on the ordinary warm nights that make up most of a summer, use your judgment and get real help when the heat turns dangerous. But for those ordinary nights, the ones where you're lying there at 11 o'clock watching the ceiling fan push the same hot air in a circle, thinking about the bill that's coming, you now have the complete method, the full system, the one that got quietly dropped from the county extension pamphlets while the window unit companies moved in. This is exactly what the Secret Vault is here for. Recovered knowledge, real methods, things that work, that cost almost nothing, that your grandparents knew and your generation nearly let go. Try it this weekend. Open the path through your house. Hang the damp muslin. Soak one old sheet in rock salt and water and hang it above your head at sundown. Then check your thermometer at 5 in the morning and come back here and tell us what you found, what the temperature read, and what state you live in. Because every data point from every climate helps the next person who finds this know exactly what to expect where they live. The knowledge is yours now. It always should have been.